After 35 years of marriage, my husband abandoned me at the airport on our anniversary trip, taking our daughter and his mistress to Hawaii with my life savings. I was standing there with no money, no ticket, and nowhere to go when an elderly blind woman, sitting on a bench nearby, turned toward me and whispered, "Sit down next to me, dear. My driver will be here in 10 minutes, and your husband is going to regret leaving you beside the wealthiest woman in Chicago." I know it sounds impossible. I know you're probably thinking this is one of those made-up stories you see online. But I swear on my late mother's grave that every single word I'm about to tell you is the absolute truth. And if you'll give me just a few minutes of your time, you'll understand how that moment at O'Hare International Airport changed my life in ways I never could have imagined. My name is Margaret. I'm 62 years old. And until that devastating Tuesday morning in April, I thought I knew what heartbreak was. 35 years married to Robert, 35 years raising our daughter Jessica, 35 years keeping our modest 3-bedroom house spotless, cooking his meals, ironing his shirts, supporting his small used car dealership while he climbed his way to moderate success. All those years of being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the dutiful woman who put everyone else's needs before her own. All those years to hear him say I was holding him back from the life he truly deserved. But that morning, everything shattered. We were supposed to be celebrating our 35th anniversary with a trip to Hawaii. I had been so excited. Robert had surprised me with the tickets 3 months earlier, saying he wanted to do something special, that I deserved it after all these years. I should have known something was wrong when Jessica suddenly decided she wanted to come along. My 40-year-old daughter, who barely called me anymore, who was always too busy with her corporate marketing job and her expensive lifestyle to visit her own mother. We arrived at the airport at 6 in the morning. Robert was acting strange, checking his phone constantly, barely looking at me. Jessica was walking ahead of us, her designer luggage rolling smoothly, while I struggled with my old suitcase that had a broken wheel. When we got to the check-in counter, everything fell apart. "I need to check in 3 passengers," Robert said to the agent. "Flight 247 to Honolulu. 3, not 3 tickets total. 3 other passengers." "Robert, what do you mean 3? I asked, confusion flooding my brain. He didn't even have the decency to look at me when he answered. "Margaret, there's been a change of plans. Jessica and I are going to Hawaii. You're not." The airport noise seemed to fade into white static. "What? What are you talking about?" Jessica turned around then, and the look on her face was one I'd never seen before. Cold, disgusted. "Oh, for God's sake, Mom. Did you really think Dad wanted to spend 2 weeks with you? Look at yourself. You're embarrassing." Each word hit me like a physical blow. "Jessica, what are you saying?" "I'm your mother." "You're a burden," she snapped. "You've always been a burden. Dad's been supporting you for decades while you did nothing but cook and clean. You never worked a real job. You never contributed anything meaningful. And now he's finally found someone who actually makes him happy." That's when I saw her. A woman in her 40s, absolutely stunning, walking toward us with a bright smile and a first-class boarding pass in her hand. She walked right up to Robert and kissed him. On the lips. Right in front of me. "Everything ready, honey?" she asked him, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Just about," Robert said, finally looking at me with eyes that held nothing but contempt. "Margaret, this is Vanessa. We've been together for 2 years. She's coming with us to Hawaii. Jessica loves her. She's already more of a mother to Jess than you ever were." I couldn't breathe. The terminal was spinning. 2 years. 2 years. But the ticket," I stammered. "You bought me a ticket." Robert laughed. Actually laughed. "No, Margaret. I bought 3 tickets. For me, Jessica, and Vanessa. You were never part of this trip. I just told you that so you'd come to the airport with us. It was easier than dealing with your crying at home." "Why would you?" "Because I'm done, Margaret. I'm filing for divorce as soon as we get back. You can figure out your own way home from the airport. I've already closed our joint bank account and moved the money. The house is in my name. The cars are in my name." Everything is in my name because you never worked, never earned anything, never contributed anything, except mediocrity." Jessica chimed in. "Mom, just accept it. You're 62 years old. You have no skills, no job, no money. Dad's moving on with his life, and honestly, so am I. Vanessa's been helping me with my career. She has connections, opportunities. You have nothing to offer anyone." I reached out to touch my daughter's arm, but she jerked away like I had burned her. "Please, Jessica. I'm your mother. I raised you. I gave up my nursing career to stay home with you when you were born. Nobody asked you to do that," she said coldly. "That was your choice. And it was a stupid choice. Now you're just a useless old woman with no purpose." Vanessa spoke up then, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Margaret, Robert told me all about you, how you've been emotionally manipulating him for years, making him feel guilty for wanting more out of life. But he deserves happiness. We deserve happiness. You need to let him go." I looked at Robert, searching for any trace of the man I married 35 years ago, the man who promised to love me in sickness and in health. But that man was gone. In his place was a stranger with a cruel smile. "Take care of yourself, Margaret," he said, picking up his luggage. "Come on, girls, we have a plane to catch." And just like that, they walked away. My husband of 35 years, my only daughter, and the woman who had replaced me. They walked towards security, laughing, not even looking back. I stood there in the middle of O'Hare Airport, frozen, as travelers rushed past me in every direction. I opened my purse with shaking hands. $15. That's all I had. The credit cards were all in Robert's name. My debit card was linked to our joint account, which he'd just emptied. My phone was on his family plan. I had no car, because Jessica had driven us to the airport in her car. No way home. No money for a taxi. No money for anything. I felt my legs give out. I stumbled to the nearest bench and collapsed onto it, burying my face in my hands. 35 years. Wasted. Gone. Everything I'd built, every sacrifice I'd made, all of it meant nothing. I was 62 years old, with no career, no money, no home, no family. I had nothing. The tears came then. Deep, wrenching sobs that I couldn't control. People walking by stared at me, but no one stopped. No one cared about a broken old woman crying on an airport bench. That's when I heard the voice beside me, soft, gentle, but somehow commanding. "Excuse me, dear. Are you all right?" I lifted my head and saw an elderly woman sitting on the other end of the bench. She had to be in her late 70s, dressed in an elegant cream-colored suit with a silk scarf. Her white hair was perfectly styled, but what struck me most were her eyes clouded over with cataracts, clearly blind, yet turned directly toward me, as if she could see right through to my soul. I'm sorry," I managed to say between sobs. "I didn't mean to disturb you." "You're not disturbing me at all," she said kindly. "But I can hear in your voice that something terrible has just happened. Would you like to talk about it?" I don't know why I told her. Maybe because she was a stranger. Maybe because she couldn't see me and therefore couldn't judge me. Or maybe because I desperately needed someone, anyone, to acknowledge my pain. So I told her everything. About Robert, about Jessica, about Vanessa, about being left with $15 to my name and nowhere to go. The woman listened silently until I finished. Then she was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "What's your name, dear?" "Margaret. Margaret Harrison." She inhaled sharply, her hand flying to her chest. "Margaret? Margaret Harrison, who worked as a nurse's aide 30 years ago?" I blinked in confusion. "Yes, but how did you—" "My God," she whispered. "It's really you. Margaret, do you remember taking care of an elderly woman named Evelyn Whitmore at Mercy General Hospital in 1995? The name struck a chord in my memory. Evelyn Whitmore. I remembered her, a kind woman dying of cancer, whose daughter visited every single day. I had stayed late many nights, off the clock, just to keep Evelyn company, to hold her hand, to make sure she wasn't alone. I had even missed my own daughter's 10th birthday party to be there when Evelyn passed because her daughter couldn't make it in time due to a delayed flight. Yes, I said slowly. I remember her. She was one of my favorite patients. The blind woman's face transformed with emotion. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm Catherine Whitmore. Evelyn was my mother. And you, Margaret. You were the angel who held her hand when she died because I couldn't get there in time. You called me that night, put the phone to her ear so I could say goodbye. You stayed with her until her very last breath so she wouldn't be alone. I felt chills run down my spine. Catherine? Little Catherine? But you were... I was 47 then. I'm 78 now. She reached out her hand, searching for mine, and I took it. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Margaret, you gave me the greatest gift anyone ever could. Because of you, my mother didn't die alone and afraid. Because of you, I got to say goodbye. I've spent 30 years trying to find you to thank you properly, but you'd left the hospital, and I didn't know where you'd gone. I quit nursing after that, I said quietly. I got pregnant with Jessica right after, and Robert wanted me to stay home. Catherine shook her head slowly. And now that husband of yours has abandoned you, left you here with nothing. Her voice turned hard, determined. Well, Margaret Harrison, I'm about to return the favor you did for me 30 years ago. I'm about to give you back your life. Before I could ask what she meant, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. A professional-looking man in his 50s stepped out and approached us. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic on the Kennedy was terrible. It's quite all right, James, Catherine said, standing up with surprising grace. She turned to me, still holding my hand. Margaret, this is James, my personal assistant. James, this is my dear friend Margaret Harrison. She's coming home with us. Wait, Catherine? I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Her blind eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made me believe she could actually see me. Margaret, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen very carefully. I am the majority shareholder of Whitmore Pharmaceuticals. My company is worth $3 billion. I live alone in a mansion in Lake Forest with more rooms than I know what to do with. And I am hereby offering you a place to stay, a job working with my charitable foundation, and the chance to rebuild your life. My mouth fell open. $3 billion. Catherine Whitmore. I'd read about her in the papers. She was one of the wealthiest women in the Midwest. But why? Why would you do this for me? Catherine squeezed my hand. Because 30 years ago you showed my dying mother more compassion and love than her own family did. You gave up your own daughter's birthday to be there for a stranger. And now I'm going to show you that kindness is never wasted, Margaret. It always comes back. Sometimes when you need it most. She turned to James. Please take Margaret's luggage and put it in the car. We're going home. I looked back toward the security checkpoint where Robert, Jessica, and Vanessa had disappeared. Then I looked at Catherine's outstretched hand. I took it. Let's go, I said, my voice stronger than it had been in years. As we walked toward the Mercedes, I heard a shout behind us. Mom? Mom? I turned and saw Jessica running toward us, her face flushed, her eyes wide. She must have looked back and seen me getting into the luxury car. Mom, wait. Where are you going? Who is that woman? Catherine turned her face toward Jessica's voice, a small smile playing on her lips. You must be the daughter. The one who called her mother useless and told her she had nothing to offer anyone. Jessica's face went pale. I didn't. Oh, but you did, Catherine said coolly. I may be blind, young lady, but my hearing is exceptional. I heard every cruel word you said to this woman, the woman who gave up her career to raise you, the woman who sacrificed everything for your comfort. She paused. Your mother is coming home with me. She has a new life waiting for her now, a life where she will be valued, respected, and compensated handsomely for her time and talents. Jessica stammered, looking at me. Mom, you can't just leave with some stranger. That's insane. Come on, let's talk about this. For 35 years, I had jumped every time my family needed me. Every time they called, I came running. But as I looked at my daughter's face, a face that showed concern not for my well-being, but for what she might be losing, I felt something inside me shift. No, I said simply. I don't think we have anything to talk about, Jessica. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Mom, please. I'm sorry. I was just upset. You know I didn't mean those things. Yes, you did. My voice was calm, steady. You meant every word. And you know what? That's okay. Because it showed me who you really are, and it freed me to become who I'm meant to be. James opened the car door for Catherine and me. As I slid into the plush leather seat, I caught one last glimpse of Jessica standing there, her mouth open in shock. The Mercedes pulled away from the curb, and I didn't look back. The drive to Lake Forest took 45 minutes. Catherine sat beside me, holding my hand, telling me about her life, her company, her charitable foundation that funded medical research and nursing scholarships. She talked about how lonely she'd been since losing her sight 5 years ago to macular degeneration, how her own children barely visited, too busy with their own lives. We're going to help each other, Margaret, she said. You're going to help me run my foundation, use your nursing background to evaluate grant applications, visit hospitals, make a real difference. And I'm going to give you the financial independence and respect you should have had all along. When we arrived at her estate, my breath caught in my throat. The house, mansion was a stunning white colonial with columns, expansive gardens, and a view of Lake Michigan that looked like something from a magazine. A woman in her 50s met us at the door. Mrs. Whitmore, welcome back. And this must be Margaret. Helen, this is my dear friend Margaret Harrison. She'll be staying in the Blue Guest Suite. Please make sure she has everything she needs. Of course, ma'am. The Blue Guest Suite turned out to be larger than my entire house with Robert. It had a king-size bed, a sitting area, a private bathroom with a soaking tub, and a walk-in closet. French doors opened onto a private balcony overlooking the lake. I can't accept this, I said, tears streaming down my face. Catherine, this is too much. Nonsense, she said firmly. This is exactly what you deserve, Margaret, and tomorrow we're going to start getting you set up properly. Bank accounts, credit cards, a proper wardrobe, everything. You're going to learn that you have value, my dear. Tremendous value. That night, I slept in the most comfortable bed I'd ever experienced, in the most beautiful room I'd ever seen, and for the first time in decades, I felt hope. The next morning, Catherine's lawyer arrived. His name was David Morrison, a sharp-eyed man in his 60s who had handled the Whitmore family's legal affairs for 30 years. Margaret, he said kindly, Mrs. Whitmore has asked me to help you with several matters. First, we need to protect you legally from your husband. He's going to come back, and when he does, he's going to try to take advantage of your new situation. I don't have anything for him to take, I said. Catherine smiled. Not yet, but you will. David, explain the arrangements. David opened his briefcase. Mrs. Whitmore is hiring you as the Director of Healthcare Initiatives for the Whitmore Foundation. Your starting salary is $250,000 per year, plus benefits, housing allowance, and expense account. Additionally, Mrs. Whitmore is gifting you $500,000 as a personal thank you for the care you showed her mother 30 years ago. I nearly fainted. What? No, I can't. You can, and you will, Catherine said. Margaret, for 30 years I've wanted to repay you. Now I finally can. And besides, you're going to earn every penny. The foundation has been floundering without proper medical oversight. I need someone I can trust, someone who actually cares about helping people, not just collecting a paycheck. Over the next 2 weeks, my life transformed completely. David filed for divorce on my behalf, citing abandonment and emotional cruelty. He also filed a motion to freeze Robert's assets, until the division could be properly assessed, since Robert had emptied our joint account illegally. Catherine took me shopping, hired a personal stylist, got me a complete makeover. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The downtrodden, exhausted woman was gone. In her place was someone confident, polished, professional. I threw myself into work at the foundation. It turned out I was good at it, really good. My nursing background meant I could evaluate medical grant proposals with expertise. I visited hospitals, talked to doctors and researchers, identified programs that were truly making a difference. For the first time in 35 years, I felt like I had a purpose beyond cooking and cleaning. 3 weeks after that day at the airport, Robert called me. I was in my new office at the Whitmore Foundation headquarters when my new cell phone rang with an unknown number. "Margaret? It's Robert." His voice made my stomach clench. "What do you want?" "We need to talk. About the divorce, about the settlement. Can we meet?" "Talk to my lawyer," I said coldly. "Margaret, please. I know I made some mistakes, but we can work this out. 35 years of marriage, we can't just throw that away." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You threw it away when you abandoned me at the airport, Robert. When you emptied our bank account, when you chose your mistress over your wife. That was, look, Vanessa and I, it's complicated. I was confused. Jessica was pushing me. Don't you dare blame our daughter for your choices." "Our daughter?" His voice turned nasty. "She's not on your side anymore, Margaret. She's with me. She's with Vanessa. They went to Hawaii together, bonded. Jessica finally has a mother figure who supports her career instead of guilting her about not visiting enough." Each word was designed to hurt me. A month ago, it would have worked. But now, "Good for Jessica," I said calmly. "I hope she and Vanessa are very happy together. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the board of directors in 10 minutes. "Board of directors? Margaret, what are you talking about? What kind of game are you playing?" "No game, Robert. Just my new life. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. Goodbye." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from power, from control, from the intoxicating feeling of finally being the one who walked away. That afternoon, Catherine and I had lunch on the terrace, overlooking the lake. She was teaching me about the business side of philanthropy, how to evaluate nonprofit organizations, how to make strategic investments in healthcare innovation. "You're a natural at this," she said. Her blind eyes turned toward the Sunday I knew you would be. Compassion combined with intelligence, it's a rare combination. "Catherine, I need to ask you something." "Why me? Really? I know about your mother, but there must be thousands of people you could have hired for this position." She was quiet for a moment. "Because, Margaret, I know what it's like to be underestimated. When I took over my father's pharmaceutical company 40 years ago, everyone said I'd fail. A woman running a major corporation? Impossible, they said. I proved them all wrong. Built the company from 50 million to 3 billion. But I never forgot how it felt to have people look at me and see nothing but limitations." She reached across the table and found my hand. "When I heard your husband and daughter talking to you at that airport, I heard my father's voice from 50 years ago, telling me I was too stupid to understand business, that I should just get married and have babies. And I knew I had to help you, because you, like me, are so much more than they could ever see." Tears filled my eyes. "Thank you for everything." "Don't thank me yet," she said with a mysterious smile. "We're just getting started." 6 weeks after I moved in with Catherine, the divorce hearing was scheduled. David had prepared me thoroughly. Robert was fighting for half of everything I'd acquired since leaving him my salary, my signing bonus, even my position at the foundation. He's claiming that as his wife of 35 years, he's entitled to half of any income or assets you gain, since you're still legally married, David explained. He's also claiming that you abandoned the marriage by leaving with Mrs. Whitmore, and that his relationship with Vanessa only started after you left. That's a lie. I know, and we're going to prove it. The courtroom was in downtown Chicago. I arrived with Catherine, David, and James. When Robert walked in with his lawyer, his jaw dropped. I was wearing a tailored navy suit that cost more than his car payment. My hair was styled professionally. I looked successful, confident, powerful. Jessica was with him. She barely looked at me. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Coleman, reviewed the case files with a stern expression. Robert's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, my client is seeking an equitable division of assets acquired during the marriage, including Mrs. Harrison's new employment income and signing bonus from the Whitmore Foundation." Despite my client's brief indiscretion. Brief? I couldn't help but interrupt. 2 years is brief? Judge Coleman raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Harrison, you'll have your turn. Continue, counselor." As I was saying, despite a brief misstep, Mr. Harrison remained committed to the marriage until Mrs. Harrison abandoned him to pursue a relationship with a wealthy benefactor. Objection! David shot to his feet. That's a deliberate mischaracterization. Mrs. Whitmore is a respected businesswoman who offered my client a professional opportunity, nothing more. "Is Mrs. Whitmore present in the courtroom?" Judge Coleman asked. "I am, Your Honor," Catherine said, standing with Helen's help. "Mrs. Whitmore, can you explain your relationship with Mrs. Harrison?" Catherine turned her face toward the judge's voice. 30 years ago, Your Honor, my mother was dying of cancer at Mercy General Hospital. Margaret Harrison was her nurse's aide. When I couldn't make it to the hospital in time because my flight was delayed, Margaret stayed with my mother, held her hand, and made sure she didn't die alone. She even missed her own daughter's birthday to be there for a stranger. Her voice cracked with emotion. "For 30 years, I've wanted to repay that kindness. When I encountered Margaret at the airport, abandoned and broken, I finally got my chance." The judge looked at Robert with obvious distaste. "You abandoned your wife at an airport?" Robert's lawyer jumped in. "My client was taking a planned trip to Hawaii with his mistress," David interjected, "and his daughter, leaving his wife of 35 years with no money, no transportation, and no way to get home. We have witness statements from airport security who observed the incident." Judge Coleman leaned back in her chair. "Go on." David presented his evidence. Bank records showing Robert had emptied their joint account the day before the airport incident. Credit card statements showing charges for 3 tickets to Hawaii, hotel rooms, and expensive dinners, all charged weeks before the trip. Phone records proving Robert and Vanessa had been in constant contact for over 2 years. Then came the testimony that changed everything. "Your Honor, we'd like to call Jessica Harrison to the stand." My daughter's face went pale. She clearly hadn't expected this. She took the stand, avoiding my eyes. "Miss Harrison," David said gently, "when did you first meet Vanessa Sinclair?" "About 2 years ago," Jessica mumbled. "And what was the nature of her relationship with your father at that time?" I don't. Please answer the question." Jessica glanced at Robert, then at the judge. "They were dating." "Dating? So 2 years ago, while your father was still married to your mother, he was in a romantic relationship with Miss Sinclair?" "Yes." "And you knew about this?" A long pause. "Yes." "Did you tell your mother?" "No." "Why not?" Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. "Because Dad said he'd cut me off if I told. He was helping me with my condo payments, my car, my credit cards. I couldn't afford to lose that." The courtroom was silent. "So you chose money over your mother," David said quietly. Tears streamed down Jessica's face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom." "One more question," David interrupted. "On the day at the airport, whose idea was it to abandon your mother there?" Jessica looked at her father. Robert was shaking his head frantically. "Miss Harrison, you're under oath." "It was Dad's idea," she whispered. "He said it would be easier than dealing with her at home, that she'd just cry and make a scene. Vanessa thought it was funny." Judge Coleman's expression was thunderous. "Mr. Harrison, You engineered a plan to publicly humiliate and abandon your wife of 35 years, enlisted your daughter to participate in this cruelty, and now you have the audacity to come into my courtroom asking for half of the money she's earned through her own merit? Robert's lawyer tried to salvage things. Your Honor, if we could just— You're done, the judge said sharply. She looked at me with something like respect. Mrs. Harrison, I'm granting your petition for divorce on grounds of abandonment and emotional cruelty. You will retain all assets acquired after the date of separation. Mr. Harrison will receive nothing from your new employment. Furthermore, I'm ordering Mr. Harrison to pay you $50,000 as compensation for his theft of marital funds from your joint account. She banged her gavel. This case is closed. Robert jumped to his feet. This isn't fair. I built that dealership. I supported her for 35 years. You supported her? Judge Coleman's voice could have frozen fire. She gave up her career to raise your child and manage your home. That was her contribution to the marriage, and it was just as valuable as any paycheck. More valuable, considering the character of the man who earned it. Now get out of my courtroom before I hold you in contempt. Robert and his lawyer left in defeat. Jessica tried to approach me, but I held up my hand. Don't, I said quietly. You made your choice, Jessica. You chose money over your mother. You chose your father's comfort over the truth. I hope it was worth it. Mom, please. I'm not your mom anymore, I said, and the words hurt less than I expected. A mother is someone who sacrifices for her child. You've made it clear you don't value that sacrifice. So I'm done. I'm done being convenient. I'm done being taken for granted. I'm done being your safety net while you treat me like garbage. Catherine took my arm. Come, Margaret. We have a foundation gala to prepare for. As we walked out of the courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in decades. That was 6 months ago. Today, I'm sitting in my corner office at the Whitmore Foundation, reviewing proposals for a new nursing scholarship program. Catherine and I have become genuine friends. Sisters, really. She taught me about business. I help her navigate the medical world with her blindness. We're partners in every sense of the word. Last month, the foundation hosted its annual gala. I gave a speech about second chances, about how one act of kindness can echo through decades. The event raised $12 million for medical research and nursing education. Robert tried to contact me twice more, but I blocked his number. Last I heard, Vanessa left him for a wealthier man, and his car dealership is struggling financially. Jessica sent me a letter 3 months ago, a real letter, handwritten, begging for forgiveness. I read it once, cried, and then put it away. Maybe someday I'll be ready to respond, but not yet. The wound is still too fresh. Catherine told me something profound last week. We were having dinner on the terrace, watching the sunset over Lake Michigan, when she said, Margaret, do you know why I was really at that airport that day? You said you were traveling, I replied. She shook her head. I lied. Well, partially. Helen called me. She'd been at the airport that morning, saw the whole thing with Robert and Jessica. She recognized you from the old photo I keep of you and my mother in my bedroom, the one the hospital sent me after Mother died. She called me immediately, and I raced to O'Hare. I stared at her. You came there specifically for me? I've had investigators looking for you for 30 years, Margaret. When Helen recognized you, when she saw what was happening to you, I knew it was fate. God's way of giving me the chance to finally repay you. She smiled. So you see, that day at the airport wasn't a coincidence. It was destiny. I took her hand. This incredible woman who gave me back my life. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. It's more than enough. Because you've given me something too, Margaret. You've given me family. Real family. The kind that isn't based on blood, but on choice and love and mutual respect. This morning, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Robert and Jessica at what looked like a small apartment, both of them looking tired and unhappy. The message said, "Hope you're satisfied. You destroyed our family." I deleted it without responding. Because they're wrong. I didn't destroy anything. They did, years ago, with their cruelty and their greed and their complete disregard for anyone but themselves. What I did was rebuild. I took the broken pieces of my life and created something beautiful, something meaningful, something that helps thousands of people through the Foundation's work. And I learned the most important lesson of all, that your value isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to see yourself. That family isn't who you're born to, but who chooses to stand beside you when everything falls apart. That the worst betrayals can become the greatest blessings if you're brave enough to walk through the pain and come out the other side. My name is Margaret Whitmore now. Catherine legally adopted me as her daughter last month, making me her heir and successor at the Foundation. At 63 years old, I finally have the family I always deserved. And it all started with one elderly blind woman who whispered, "Sit down next to me, dear." Sometimes the worst day of your life is actually the first day of the rest of your life. You just have to be brave enough to believe it.